Hey, brothers and sisters, it's Bishop Tapp again. This is part 8 of the Self-Reliance series I've been doing. I want to kind of shift phases now. We've been talking about the financial stewardship success map, and we'll come back to that towards the end of this. But um, I'm going to kind of break away and deviate a little bit because the Self-Reliance book gives a lot of great principles. One thing, I'm very action oriented in my life. I need a step-by-step plan so I know what to do. Otherwise, sometimes I get lost. I don't know if you're like that, but um, as I talked about in the very first video, the self-reliance or the stewardship success map, financial stewardship success map, is the framework which we'll use, but the action steps I'd like to talk about going forward are these baby steps. Baby step 1 again is save $1,000 in your emergency fund, and then 2, pay off all of your debt. 3 is save 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund. 4 is invest 15%. 6 is save for your children's college fund. Or that's 5. 6 is pay off your home early, and 7 is build wealth and give. And those baby steps to me are very important because the more I've implemented them in my life, I've been able to make some big adjustments and make a lot of headway doing this. And so I want to talk about the action steps, but first I want to talk about the why. To me, the why is extremely important. And this might be a weird topic to have your bishop talking to you about, but I mentioned in the very beginning of this book, The Millionaire Next Door. I want to talk a little bit today about what millionaires are, who millionaires are, and why they're important. Because this is, it's not about the money per se. $1 million can set you up for a decent retirement, but more importantly, as you get $1 million, that money begins to make a ton of money in and of itself. You get to a point where your money is making more than you do in an average year, and that's huge, and that's really where we can become very prosperous and help build the kingdom of God in some very unique ways, and we'll talk about that later. But again, just kind of fun to talk about who these millionaires next door are, and as the title says, it's the guy next door. Like, you wouldn't even know they're a millionaire. Most millionaires actually live in a average neighborhood. They have a 26,000 square foot house. Costs them around $2,000 for that house, or excuse me, 2,600 square foot house. So a pretty average sized house in an average neighborhood. I'm taking most of my statistics today from Chris Hogan's Everyday Millionaires. I mentioned that before. It's just like the Millionaires Next Door. To me, this is a little more reader friendly, and I've been eating up this book lately. So let's talk about millionaires. A millionaire is someone who has a $1 million net worth. That means you add up all their assets, including their home, their investments, their savings, everything, and take away what they owe, and $1 million is left over. That's the legal definition of a millionaire. According to statistics, there are 11 million millionaires in the United States, or in North America. I find that fascinating. I heard that number and I was flabbergasted. And so one of the things I like, Chris Hogan in Everyday Millionaires did a study of over 10,000 millionaires. And that if any of you have studied statistics, is statistically significant. That means it's what it actually is. So anything you derive from a sample size that big helps you understand that this is what's actually happening. And so I want to talk about what he found an average millionaire is like, because I think it's important. If we understand that, we can model our behaviors after that. And that's really what the 7 baby steps are, is just preparing yourself and modeling yourself after those who have a significant amount of money and who it's not, again, not about the money, it's about being self-reliant. And so here's some statistics. I'll run through them quickly. You might want to pause this and write these down. I might throw this in the description when I post it, but here we go. So 79% of millionaires did not inherit any money. That's interesting because I think a lot of us picture millionaires in this big mansion, inherited it from mom and dad, but no. In fact, only 2% say they came from upper class. That means 98% of millionaires were either middle or lower class, self-described anyway. They aren't C-suite executives. They aren't like the CEO. In fact, only 18% of millionaires even own their own business. Chris Hogan was asking them what their careers were. Here were the three most common jobs of millionaires: an engineer, an accountant, and the third is teacher. I think that's absolutely fascinating that one of the three most common jobs among millionaires is teachers. We always talk about how much teachers make. They don't make a whole lot, but they live frugally, save their money, and invest, and turn out millionaires. This is also interesting. One of three millionaires never made six figures in a single working year. That means their salary never exceeded $100,000. That's kind of big. That means these people don't have extremely huge incomes. 9% of millionaires didn't even go to college, but 88% of them have a bachelor's degree. So that's kind of, I hope, breaking the mystery around what a millionaire is. Here's what I find interesting, talking about how they did it. So how did they amass this money? It's interesting to note the average millionaire saved and invested for 28 years before they made their first $1 million. So becoming a millionaire is not an overnight thing. You can save to $1 million. In fact, that is what most millionaires do. They just put money away. They live on less than they make. 8 out of 10 millionaires said their primary investing vehicle was their company 401k. So it's nothing secret, nothing fancy. They just consistently put in their company 401k. But this is interesting. 93% of millionaires say they stick to a budget. And that's not stuck to a budget. They stick to a budget. They stay on a budget. That's why I spent so much time talking about budgeting and how we budget, because if millionaires stick to budgets and I want to have that much, I'm going to stick to that. Stick to a budget. Okay. Interesting, the same percent, 93%, use coupons regularly. Again, we think of millionaires as people who throw around money. Nope. They coupon clip. And they're always looking for a deal, not wanting to pay full price. Let's see, 85% of millionaires still use a shopping list. I don't know about you, but for years I've gone shopping without a shopping list. And I've changed that habit, but millionaires use a shopping list to help control their spending. 95% of millionaires say they save up for big expenses. And this isn't like a vacation. They're talking cars. In fact, the average millionaire drives a 4-year-old car with 41,000 miles on it. They aren't buying brand new cars off the lot because they know cars depreciate extremely quickly, and so they buy something that's a little bit older. This is interesting too. 73% of millionaires have never carried a credit card balance. That's interesting to me. Again, we'll talk about debt here in a little bit, and debt is such a common thing, especially debt on credit cards. And 73% of millionaires just never did it, even when they had nothing. They lived on less than they made and made do with that. this is also interesting. The average millionaire spends $200 a month on restaurant food. Now, I find that interesting. I think I mentioned this before in budgeting. Before I was watching my budget, I was spending like $400 a month at restaurants, and I know people who spend more than that, and that's crazy to me because that means I was acting like I had $1 million and was throwing more money away and out than your average millionaire. And then this is my favorite one. Just talking about again the mentality behind this is they asked millionaires how much on average they spend on a pair of jeans. Most of them say they haven't spent more than $35 on a pair of jeans. They're very frugal with their money. They're not going to spend more for a name brand or for some designer jeans, but they'll just buy a typical average pair of jeans. So, thought that was interesting. Again, you might have to pause that and think through some of it. I'll post some of these statistics out there, but I think it's interesting that that's your average everyday millionaire. Now, I think that's a worthy, attainable goal that we all ought to be striving for. With $1 million, you can have a good retirement and help build the kingdom of God. And so, the way we do that is by these 7 baby steps: saving $1,000, paying off debt, save 3 to 6 months of expenses, 15% of our income is invested, and then college funds, and then pay off your house early and build wealth. Again, these are step by step. You do number 1 and then you move on to number 2. You don't go from 1 to 4 to 5. You do these sequentially down in order. If you'll do that, that will get you on a path to being more self-reliant than you ever thought manageable. I've seen it in my own life. I've watched other people do it in their lives. I know it's true. And so I'm excited to kind of dig into those baby steps with you going forward here. Have a good one.